to another episode of Gov Tech Today. I'm Russell Lowery.
And I'm Jen Saha.
And together we try and bridge the gap between .com and .gov. Perhaps there's no bigger bridge to build than for the private sector, at least, and for a lot of our government sector listeners, when the governor issues an executive order, and the governor has issued a new one, yet another one, on efficiencies. Why don't you describe what the executive order is, and then we'll get into what exactly that means.
Yeah, so efficient and effective government. A win-win-win for everyone
Who could be opposed
involved,
to that?
right? It sounds incredible. So the first thing that any of us do when one of these is released is look beyond the headline, right? Dig into it and see what exactly this executive order is ordering, right? What is the therefore? It's funny because that's how executive orders are broken out. It's
Right.
Whereas, a bunch of whereas statements, like whereas California's a leader in
Right.
AI, and whereas
And
we're
people will
awesome.
fight about what the whereas says.
Totally, but like that's the sausage making behind the scene. Now I therefore order, and so most of the time I'll scroll down and find the therefore, and then start to read those statements because that's what the state departments and agencies are actually ordered to do. So this one, mid-July, came out, and it's all about finding ways to make government work more efficiently and effectively. A huge part of that is using AI. So the governor touted all of California's achievements on AI to date, and we've covered many of them here on the podcast, and really looked to his department and a newly formed committee of business leaders to help him figure out where exactly we're going to land on those efficiencies within state government.
So, how do you define efficiency? One person's efficiency might sound like a job cut to a state employee or to the public. Is there any substance to that efficiency?
So he definitely pointed people in directions. One of the areas which I think is sort of inarguable for needing some of this is the state's hiring process. So directly mentioned in one of those orders was looking at our hiring process in state government and using some efficiencies, AI perhaps, to narrow the hiring time, right? From application to a butt in a seat at a department. And I mean, that's a huge win.
Right. It could be for applicants, frustrated people who, for years, I've heard of circumstances where people are knocking at the door trying to get that entry level position. And I wonder how many people drop out of the process because it's inefficient. They haven't heard back. It seemed like a black hole.
Yeah, I
Is
hear
it ever
horror
gonna
stories
happen?
all the time, right? It's, I applied for that months ago, and then they finally called me. I got a new job 4 months ago. Sorry, government. So definitely prime for some of these efficiencies. Another one was the state's procurement process, which we always keep a close eye on. It has huge impacts to the vendor community. So use some of these efficiencies to improve time and cost associated with procurements.
I know that I've had a couple meetings where I've explained a few opportunities. It's hard to discern the process for bubbling up, and I've certainly got some insight from department to agency and the considerations on whether they actually want to comply or not. Do you think agencies and departments were freaked out by a call for an efficiency proposal, or do you think that's something they've already thought about?
So yeah, it's something you mentioned. In this order, each department in government is asked to designate someone as their sort of executive order efficiency person and to identify one efficiency within their department as a result of this. To your point, I don't think anyone is freaking out about that.
Right.
There are plenty from, time to record a contract to whatever it may be, your hiring practices. Maybe it's as simple as, reducing wait times on a call center. So I don't think anyone is like, oh my gosh, how are we going to find this? Because look, no one's doing a fabulous job at this, private sector or public sector. I mean, like, if you turn around and said, Jen, you have to come up with an efficiency in your own business operations, I'm not going to be like, no, I don't have any. Like, no one's
Everybody,
perfect.
it's perfectly
Right.
dialed in, right?
Yeah. So I
So
don't think that's going to be the case.
So if they have these things identified, why have they not happened yet? Does this open up an opportunity that didn't exist before? Or if it was already available, do they need permission? What is the opportunity for the department from the department's perspective? What does this executive order open up from the opportunity standpoint?
I think it's a matter of it being a focus, right? Now you have an executive order behind you, and there are plenty of ambitious, efficient workers in government that want to make a difference and see ways to make a difference. But these people are incredibly busy, right? Like they're not only trying to improve the process, but they're trying to do their day job, which
Right.
could be any number of overburdened, overworked tasks on their list. So this sort of gives them the green light and the air cover, if you will, to invest in some of those efficiency issues that maybe have been nagging at them for years.
I can immediately call to mind Governor Wilson's focus on efficiency, eliminating fraud, waste, and abuse. Then you had Gray Davis do it. Then you had Governor Schwarzenegger do it. Then you had certainly Jerry Brown gave his efforts, and the governor's had his a variety of different issues. Where he's been driving this, and this executive order is the latest. The reason I say that is not to poo-poo what's going to happen, but if a department just wanted to dust something off that had been proposed at some time in the past, freshen it up, throw it up the chain, and then get on with their day, they could do that too.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. This is nothing new. It's probably work that should have been happening all along. But now you have the backing of an executive, the chief executive in government, saying that it needs to be a priority. There are some deadlines associated with this. So those departments have to get their efficiency, whatever that may be, surfaced and in a report back to the governor. Our GovOps agency has some deliverables. They have to answer to the governor as a result of this executive order. So it'll be great to see how those efficiencies sort of evolve. The other sort of interesting thing here that I thought was a little different maybe than what has happened before is the governor convened a group of business leaders looking at these efficiencies, how we make government function more like the private sector. He pulled together, I'm looking through here. It's called the California Breakthrough Project, the best and the brightest of California's tech industry. This group is going to help advise and advance government efficiency and collaboration. So, leaders from the startup world, the private equity world, investments, also Ripple, some big coding companies, Tesla, Twilio, Code for America, Jen Paulka. And so interesting that, now we have a sort of group charged with this. I'm going to be honest with you. It's a lot of photo ops and a connection for the governor to speak to some influential people in the business community. These people are oftentimes donors on campaign initiatives and things like that. So a lot of that to me is just a great press release. But what I'm really interested in is how that executive order, what the therefores are, and how those are driven to success through these departments and agencies.
I was looking at it and I read the same information and took a more cynical look at it and said,
I was trying to be nice,
but
I love it.
If you get a bunch of people together who don't know government to work on how to make government more efficient, the real genius is translating that into government and how that's going to work. And a high level CEA that has been in an agency for 20 years that is maybe getting by with scarce resources and making the best out of things. If I were trying to make government efficiency the worst, as much progress as I could, I would elevate those voices, some obscure, behind the scenes people who have devoted their life to public service and said, okay, how do I empower you? And have a conversation with you and elevate those voices. This seems to me the kind of thing that those same voices who could move things forward can roll their eyes with a smile without ever telling anybody no, listen, and protect the institution from any significant changes if they want to. Even with the power of the governor behind, he's now on a clock, and the civil servant is not on a clock. His power is diminishing by the day, and you're going to see people who are vying for positions in the next administration. You're going to have different levels of commitment, even from the governor's own appointees, who are looking for where are they going to land post this governor being in office. It just seems like a really ambitious thing that will be received differently from a governor who's running for president, who's in the last 2 years of his term, as opposed to if he'd made this same announcement in year one of being elected.
Yeah. I mean, I don't disagree.
Yeah.
I was sugarcoating it a little bit.
Yeah, a little.
But no, I mean, that's the reality. A lot of this is political, and we get that. But there is some meat under it.
Yeah.
And I do love the idea of bringing to the forefront the idea that government should be operating more efficiently and more effectively. And we want you to use generative AI to help that along.
Definitely encouraging.
One of the things I really liked in here, and it's something that we've chatted about for a while. So CDT was specifically directed in the executive order to establish shared IT contracts. At CDT, these vehicles would, every department in government could buy off of them. We have these already, like our state cloud contracts. So if you want to buy Microsoft Cloud or Amazon Cloud, you buy it off of CDT's cloud contract, or Oracle's cloud or Google's cloud. There's 4 of them that are established right now. So I love that because it just makes sense. Like, that's a huge efficiency, not only for government, who doesn't want to have to go negotiate with Microsoft and Oracle and AWS and Google, but also for those companies that are selling to the state. Like, wouldn't you rather sell one contract with great pricing, please, but one contract to CDT that every department buys off of, versus going around and selling to 150 departments, agencies, boards, bureaus, commissions?
You still have to sell all of those boards, agencies, commissions, departments, all those individual buyers to pick this contract or that contract, but it answers the how do I buy you question.
Totally.
Which makes things a lot smoother.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm excited about that. I think there is a ton of opportunity there.
Can you talk a little bit about why the simplicity of buying off this pre-negotiated contract simplifies it from the life of a program? They're running their program. They'd like to buy the software. How is their life different because this consolidated contract exists?
So the big thing is in price and in having to solicit bids. You don't when there's an already established contract. I don't negotiate the price with Microsoft or Amazon or whoever. Like, it's already there. It's posted, and it's the best price that I'm going to get. So I don't have to ask for great pricing. It's already established. I also don't have to get 3 bids to make sure I'm getting the best pricing because, again, that's already established. That contract has already been awarded. So it's a simple form, a Form 20 in California, that I just submit and say, hey, I want to use some of the services and goods offered on that contract. So it's a huge efficiency for these departments. And it does make everyone's lives a lot easier.
How does it work for the selling community? So if I'm on the SLP, I might have 6 different vendors, and they're competing on price and filling out bid forms and that sort of thing. How's that look differently for the selling community, our .com listeners, on that consolidated contract?
Yeah, this is where it gets a little pickier, right? Typically, these contracts have 1 or 2 or 3 people who are allowed to resell these goods and services. So, for instance, on our cloud contracts, there is one reseller that resells all of Microsoft's cloud purchases in the state. Awesome if you're that reseller. If you're not, you're kind of shut out of that business in California.
Right.
So, that's the brutal side of it is, efficiency at the cost of a diverse market. There is a downside, right? And it doesn't mean that, they're going to buy something off of that contract that they could also buy off of SLP. Maybe they want to go through SLP and they want offerings on that contract that maybe aren't on that centralized contract. It's also a way for the Department of Technology to help fund some of their operations. So they may tack on a user fee, a operations fee, a contracting fee, so that the Department of Technology is able to recover some of their costs for staff and resources and processing these contracts and negotiating these contracts and putting them in place. So from their perspective, it's awesome because they might be able to earn back some of that money that helps fund their livelihood.
I've been pushing and had conversations with people at various levels at the state about the small business participation or lack thereof in some of the enterprise agreements and the technology and consolidated agreements, especially after the margin's been thinned. It's unlikely that the small business vendor is going to be picked for the entire contract.
Sure, it's
even
a
if
huge
they
volume,
could,
right?
but even if they could process the paperwork, if it's largely a paperwork processing, the selling of the contract, the marketing of the contract, it's likely they're going to select a preferred vendor, and that's very likely to be a large business. What opportunities to shape the process so that small business has a significant portion of those contracts in the technology space?
You could require that these big guys partner with a small business. We want a small business as a part of your bid to resell this contract.
Right.
We've seen it happen, and it makes a ton of sense to me. I think somewhere in government, there's sort of some missing dots to connect.
Yes.
Here are our goals for small business, and here is what we sell and how we sell it. Like, to me, there is something sort of misaligned there. These are our goals. We just throw them out there, but we need a little more hand-holding and sort of helping departments and agencies to get there. That would be a way.
I've explained it to some of our .gov folks that you can negotiate the price, and you've got the vendor and the state, and once you've negotiated that price, you don't have to change that. By what happens when you include a 15% small business participation clause is that behind the scenes, that is delegated between the large and the small business partners, and the work is divvied up. But your experience of procuring that doesn't look any different. But if you don't include that small business participation route, there's no example of the big partners reaching out to the small business community outside of their state government, people saying they'd like to see it.
Yeah, it does have to be sort of a contract by contract mandate. And I was talking to someone just this morning who was like, well, what can they do? I don't see a place for a small business. And I'm like, no. There are plenty of spaces. Let's review what a commercially useful function is. Let's find a space for them, because once you commit to it, there are more teeth now than ever before, and you actually need to use them.
Well, one of the more useful ones is just the basic contract marketing of the contract. So if you've got this new contract, it's wonderful, it saves the state money. You could have the circumstance where the entity that owns that contract has no incentive to actually sell off of it. They make more money or more profit on this other contract.
Mm-hmm.
And so instead of incenting and getting the savings that you intended from the consolidated contract, they would prefer you use this other vehicle. And by having a diverse set of partners and even a small business partner who might get paid on this contract but doesn't get paid on the other contracts, then they're incented to explain the savings to departments and agencies because they're only going to make money when the department or agency uses the low price contract.
Yeah.
And those kinds of dollar figures and incentives are not always clear to our .gov partners.
Agreed. Yeah. And I mean, it is really crucial, right? Like we have these goals, they're statutory now. So we have to make it happen. Here's a great way to do that with establishing a statewide contract, which you can imagine the volume of those is going to be significantly larger than any one individual department's contract.
Well, I think and hope that our listeners got a lot of value out of today's conversation. I certainly did. Thank you, Jen.
Thank you.